Hello and welcome to Ewe Sew You. My name's Zoe and this is my channel all about the crafty bits and pieces I get up to. I knit, I sew, I spin on a drop spindle, I dabble in weaving from time to time, and anything else that takes my crafty fancy. But today we are working on this weaving up here behind Harold Hairdryer. So grab a brew, put your feet up and let's get started. Welcome back to any returning viewers, and to any new viewers a very warm welcome to you. As I mentioned in the opening to this video, we're working on this weaving up here. We're getting that finished, or at least getting the weaving bit finished. It may or may not be off the loom by the time I'm done today. But we're going to be working on the sun and the sky and the clouds and that kind of thing. So without further ado, let me switch things around, get the loom down, and we'll get going. Okay, so I will be shifting the camera around again in a minute to give you a better view of what I'm actually doing on the loom. But this is a more accurate representation of how I normally sit to weave, rather than having the loom flat on the table with the overhead camera, which when I'm doing stuff low down the loom is the best way to show you what I'm doing. But when I'm actually working on it, I will normally have it upright like this. So I've got my table covered with a tablecloth to protect it from the screws on the side of my loom, because it will scratch the finish on the table otherwise, and I don't really want to be refinishing my table all the time. So you see it be more upright. So as I get further up the loom, it makes it easier to work at. It's all well and good when you're down the bottom working on it flat on the table, but my arms aren't quite long enough to do the top of the loom that way. So we're trying a different angle today. And I have a suspicion that part of the reason my tension was going a bit wonky on the hills was because I was doing it flat on the table and I was starting to get further up the loom. So having it this way should help me, I think, control the tension a little bit better and keep it a little bit more even, and hopefully even out some of that wonkiness. But as I mentioned in an earlier Weave With Me video, I am going to wait until it's off the loom to see if some of the issues from the tension become less obvious. As that's what I noticed with a previous weaving project, that the tension issues were just less significant once it was off the loom. So yes, we're working on the sky here. We're going to have a sunset, sunrise thing happening over the top of these hills here, so we're going to be blending colours together, and then blending the sky as we get to the top, getting darker as we go up the sky. So quite light blues, bright blues around the sun, darker blues at the top. So I'll let you see snippets of me doing that as I work my way up the sky. It should be fairly clear what I'm doing. If it isn't, I will speak or put captions on the screen or something and clarify it for you. So let's get this camera switched, and I'm going to be watching some craft videos as I'm weaving, because I can see over the top of my loom to my laptop that's on a stand over there, which is nice and handy. Don't try watching anything through the warp on your loom, it will make your eyes go weird. Ask me how I know. So I've already butterflied up a variety of yarn. I've got these for my sun colours, and this for the sky. And then I've got this little group here for clouds. So yeah, fairly standard sunsetty, sunrisey type colours for the sun, and a gradient of the blues. I have got this one held with some mohair to give a bit of variety and texture to the sky. And then the clouds, I've got one, this is Gamer Crafting, it's a charity yarn for shelter. What was it called? Something about home. But I like the way this weaves up. I've woven with it before. So I've got a little bit of that on its own. Then I've got the same Gamer Crafting yarn held with mohair, or silk mohair. And then I have 3 strands of silk mohair in 2 different colourways held together. So that's going to give me a bit of texture for the clouds. I've got my weaving comb beater thing and a pair of scissors. I've also got all the rest of this yarn that I haven't wound up into butterflies on standby, just in case I need to get some more of any of these colours, in case I've sort of underestimated how much I need of that particular colour. Okay, so hopefully you can see a little bit more clearly where I'm working. So I've got my sun sketched in here. As with the hills in my previous videos, obviously I will have linked the playlist to at some point. I'm not going to worry too much about getting exactly on the lines for each section. These are more of a guide than anything else. Now the basic idea is to start with the red, blend it in with some of the purples. Purple, I've got purpley pink, magenta colour. So start with the reds and the magenta colour and the yellow up till here-ish, somewhere around there. But I'm going to be scattering some blues in with it as well. So it's like the sun's barely in sight. You're just getting the colours of the light coming through. And then we're going to merge up into the blues. So hopefully that will work. There's going to be lots of starting one colour on one side, one colour on the other side, and staggering them to get the blending effect. So yeah, let's give it a go, and I will try my best not to block your view with this hand. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to work some red in to start me off, and then I'll start blending in the other colours as I go. Actually just wondering if I should start with the yellows and blend up to the reds. No, I think reds first and then yellows. I think that's going to... Or maybe... No, I think I need to go from the yellows and blend up to the reds. So I'm just going to take this out and start over with the yellows at the bottom and just switch those colours around. So I'm going to give that a try, and I'll come back to you when I'm a little bit further along. Okay, so I've got a nice chunk of the yellow in now, and I'm going to start adding in this duller, mustardier yellow on the edges, and blend it in slightly so that I get a less blocky feel to my sun as I curve it up. So it's not going to be a pure semicircle of bright yellow. I'm going to have these other shades coming in as well. I may get a couple of the blues in a bit too, just to sort of break it up a bit. So I've got two butterflies of this colour, so one is going to start on this side, the other one is going to start on this side, so that they can come in, meet and go out again with the brighter yellow. That way I'm not having to deal with trying to cross over and coming back and refilling stuff. I can fill this side up to where I've got to with the yellow, and then keep advancing the height of the weaving at the same time, rather than chopping and changing between where I'm working. So I'm going to lay these in and make a start. So we'll use this one on this side. So just get a bit of length out from my butterfly, and I'm just going to poke the end through to the back to get it out of the way. And I'll just fill in this space here and then come back and add in on that side too. So I'm using the end of my weaving comb to help me pick up the closed shed. There we go. So we'll pop you that way. And again, using the tail of my comb to pick up the open shed. You may notice as you are weaving that some of the warp threads show through a bit as you're beating down, particularly when you're just introducing a new colour, or if, like with this hill, you're using two strands together because it's a thicker yarn in one direction but not so much in the other. It may not pack down quite so tightly. I've run with it, I've enjoyed the texture that's given me, but it may not be what you're looking for, so you may need to adjust what yarn you're using, or how many warp threads you're going over, that kind of thing, to get it to take those warp threads out and look a little bit more like this hill here, where it's a bit more tightly packed. I'll obviously let you see that more closely a little bit later on when I'm not actually actively working on it. Probably should have added this colour in at the same time as the yellow in this particular area, so that I could make sure that I've got the same number of picks and the wefts are going in the opposite directions to each other, because that's how you're going to need it to work, to meet and separate. But as I'm still learning and trying things out, I'm okay with fudging it. Okay, so there we go. This yarn has met the yellow yarn and gone back the other way, so they've met and then separated. So we're now at the same height on those two, and I'm going to do the same on this side with the other butterfly in this colour to fill in this space, so that I can then start blending this colour in as I create the top of the curve of the sun, and then I'll start adding in other colours as well, so it's, as I say, not too blocky. I don't mind it being a bit blocky, it is a weaving after all, so that's sort of playing up to the techniques, and it fits in with the hills, because the hills are fairly blocky. I just want to be playing around a little bit more with blending as I'm working on the sky. So yes, I'll get this added in, and then I'll come back and show you how it's looking as I start mixing these colours together. Okay, so I'm not going to get a huge amount more done today because the light is starting to fail, and it's I find it far better to weave by daylight than artificial light. But I just wanted to show you, if I move this a little bit closer so you can see it, I've added in some additional colours. So I've got a little splash of the magenta here, and I've got the red and the magenta coming in now to break up that blockiness and to get that sort of sunset feel going. I wanted to show you how I'm actually doing that. So these are all laid into the same shed. So some are going this way through the closed shed, some are going that way through the closed shed. But they're all being worked in the same shed at the same time on the same pick. That's going to keep everything nice and even. I do sometimes mess up and end up with them in different sheds, and you end up with your warp threads showing through the weaving where you don't want them to necessarily, because you'll have two wefts going through the same shed on top of each other, so it doesn't pack down on the warp as nicely as you'd like. So at this end I've got this mustardy colour coming in, and then the magenta's coming the other way to meet it, so they're a nice little pair there. And the magenta is already met and separated from the red. The red has gone to meet the yellow, so the yellow is there. And the yellow is separated from the mustard, and the mustard has gone to meet the red. So they're always going to meet and then separate. So they meet in the same shed and then they separate and go to meet their other one in the same shed. So that's just going to keep things nice and even and nice and neat. So yeah, so I'm going to see how much more I can get done before the light really fails me. And I'll come back to you tomorrow. Well, tomorrow for me, a couple of seconds for you. When I'm a bit further up through the sun, and I probably will have hopefully started to bring in some of the blue for the sky by that point. I don't think the sun is going to go all the way up to this yellow line here. I think it's going to be closer to this red one. But that's okay. I might end up doing a shorter sky anyway. I'm going to keep an eye on how it looks as I'm progressing, and when I feel that it's got the right balance height-wise, I will stop. If that means it's shorter than the original plan, that's not a problem. If it keeps going up as far as I'd originally planned, that's great. So yeah, I do try to take a bit of a flexible attitude to these sorts of things. Because the finished weaving looks very different to the plan on the paper anyway, because it's a different medium, and it was very much a rough sketch on the paper, so yeah, things change as you go. And that's all fine. Okay, so it's not as great for natural lighting today as I'd hoped, because it's very, very rainy outside, but hey, we're coping. So I've made a bit of progress on my sunrise sunset. So I've got magenta bits blending in with reds, and I've just started introducing some of the sky. So on this side, I'll bring it closer to you in just a second so you can see it properly. I've got the blue without the mohair, and this side I've got the blue with the mohair to give a bit of a hazy feel to it. The reason I've not done it on both is, one, I didn't prepare 2 butterflies with mohair, and 2, there's more going to be coming in on this side, so it made more sense to put it there. So I'll just bring that a little bit closer to you so you can see how the colours are playing together. So, I mean, I'm not by no means an expert in weaving and blending, or what have you. I am very much learning, but you get the idea of what I've picked up so far, and the cat's been trying to help. So I'm going to keep going with that. The plan is to gradually shorten the rows of the red and the magenta and blend them in a bit more into almost a curve, much like I've done with the yellow here, and then fill in the sides with the blues and start blending the different blues together and add in some of the grey purpley Game of Crafting yarn that I've got for a bit of interest, and some of the mohairy stuff for clouds, and build it up. I'm probably not going to go all the way up. As you can see, my son hasn't taken up anywhere near as much space as I'd anticipated on the plan. I thought it would go up to like this red line and then just sort of be blending in the yellows and the blues further up, but I've gone for a much smaller sun, which I'm happy with. So what I might be doing actually next is taking the cartoon off, because I'm not following it that closely and there's not much change happening now as I go up. So I'll weave a bit more on the sun and the sunsetty bit, and then I'll take the cartoon off whilst I'm working on the blues. That way I can really sort of assess when I've reached the height that I'm happy with for this particular weaving. So yes, I'm going to keep going with that. Okay, so I've got the sun bit done and I'm working on the sky. I'm still working with the different colours, so I've got the mohair Game of Crafting at this end to create a cloud coming up over this hill on the side. And I've got these blues that are actually both the same. I'll explain why I've got two the same next to each other in a second. And then I've got a new blue that I've added in at the end. So if I bring the loom a little bit closer to the camera, so that hopefully you can pick up on this. But I'm going to have to lift the camera up a bit. Bear with me a moment. Okay, so here I've got the bright blue and the pale blue next to each other. And then here I've got the two pale blues meeting each other and separating. Now, I've got the two the same because I did have the pale blue with the mohair in this section here to get a hazy, cloudy sort of feel to the edge of the sunset, which, to be fair, is not showing up particularly well on camera in this light. But hopefully there'll be a better view of it when everything is done. So I've taken out the one with the mohair in, but it meant that I didn't have this yarn in the same shade as this yarn. So I've added in the other butterfly of the light blue to make sure that everything is nice and even and everything's working in the same sheds. Now, I'm not going to film much more on this today because I want to get this edited and up for you guys this weekend. So there will be another Weave With Me video in a few weeks or so, once I've got the sky finished, and we'll be looking at taking it off the loom. So I'm essentially going to be working the sky in the same way as you've seen me do for this bit, and that you've seen me do in my earlier tapestry loom projects where I was blending colours in. So I'm going to carry on weaving it between now and the next time I do a Weave With Me video. And yeah, we'll come back and reconvene and tidy everything up and get it off the loom and see what's going on with my tension. But in the meantime, there will be other videos coming up each weekend, so roundups of the things I've been working on, other projects, that kind of thing. So if you like spending time in my company and you don't want to miss the next Weave With Me video, do all the stuff down below, and I will see you next time. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.